Susan caught Ethan staring, but didn't realize the embarrassment behind his gaze. She picked up a dumpling, her lips curling into a playful smile as she waved it teasingly in front of his face. "Hubby," she said, her tone light and teasing, "are you sure you don't want a taste of this?" Ethan exhaled slowly, his gaze shifting to the microwave. "Not interested," he replied coolly. Relief flickered through him as he avoided her eyes, focusing instead on the carton of milk in his hands. He placed the milk into the microwave, set the timer, and turned to prepare a sandwich: bacon, lettuce, and toast. Taking a seat at the dining table, he bit into the sandwich, chewing methodically. But as he ate, a nagging dissatisfaction settled in. The sandwich felt dry, bland. His mind drifted to the golden brown dumplings Susan had made. Ethan frowned slightly and reached for the jar of fruit jam. Spreading a thick layer onto the next slice of toast, he tried to refocus on his meal. Before he could take another bite, Susan appeared from the kitchen again. This time, her hands were full, carrying an impressive spread: dumpling, cinnamon rolls, pancakes, and a steaming cup of hot chocolate. She set the plates down on the table, her innocent smile brightening the room. "Hubby, you don't mind if I eat here, do you?" she asked, not waiting for a response as she slid into the seat across from him. Ethan's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing as he watched her begin what felt like a performance. "Please forgive me for having a sweet tooth," she said with mock solemnity. "I just can't start my day with boring cereal or a plain sandwich. It's such a disappointment to my taste buds." She picked up a dumpling, taking a big bite. Closing her eyes, she let out an exaggerated sigh. The flavor just bursts in your mouth. So delicious," she murmured, savoring the bite like it was a scene from a food commercial. Ethan remained silent, though his irritation was palpable. His fingers tightened slightly around his sandwich. What a waste of talent that she didn't pursue acting, he thought dryly. Susan wasn't done. She gestured to the pancakes, a grin tugging at her lips. Warm pancakes with high-quality butter, followed by a sip of hot chocolate. "Now that's breakfast," she declared. Ethan found himself grudgingly impressed by how she turned something as simple as eating into a captivating act. Finally, unable to take any more, he began, "You—" Before he could finish, Susan seized the moment. With a mischievous glint in her eye, she reached across the table and popped a piece of dumpling into his mouth. Ethan's initial instinct was to spit it out, his brows knitting together in annoyance. But as soon as the dumpling melted, his irritation was replaced with amazement. He chewed slowly, letting the flavor settle. The dumpling was perfect. Even the chefs in the Williams household couldn't match this. Somehow, it paired with the milk he'd been drinking. Susan leaned forward, her chin resting on her hands as she watched him with a knowing smile. "Is it good?" she asked, her voice sweet but her expression smug. Ethan noticed the look on her face and immediately schooled his features. "It's just all right," he said flatly, though his hand betrayed him as it reached for another piece. Susan grinned, winking playfully. "Didn't you say it's just all right?" she teased. His sharp gaze silenced her, but his tone remained calm. "Surely you can't finish all this yourself," he said, gesturing to the food. "I don't like wasting food." Susan opened her mouth to respond, but Ethan raised a hand. "Quiet during meals," he said curtly, taking another bite of her cooking. Ethan, for his part, hadn't planned to eat so much. But Susan's cooking was exceptional, even if he refused to acknowledge it aloud. For a moment, their eyes met across the table. Susan leaned forward, her smile warm and inviting. "Hubby, what do you want for dinner? I'll make it for you," she offered. "I have a dinner appointment tonight," he replied brusquely, rising from the table. Without another word, he headed to his room to change. Susan simply smiled and quickly cleared the table, humming to herself as she got ready for work. A while later, she stood in the living room, quietly waiting for Ethan. She looked fresh but undeniably mischievous, her lips curved in a bright, teasing smile. When Ethan emerged from his room, "Hubby," she called out cheerfully, "can you give me a lift? I'm heading to work too." Ethan paused. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at her, noting her hopeful expression. His first instinct was to refuse, another unnecessary interaction he didn't need. But then, the memory of her dumpling from the early morning surfaced. "If it's inconvenient," Susan added quickly, sensing his hesitation, "you can just drop me at the subway station." Her attempt to sound casual didn't escape him. With a quiet sigh, Ethan grabbed his keys from the counter. "Let's go," he said curtly, already moving toward the door. The elevator ride to the parking lot was quiet. Susan adjusted her purse strap nervously, glancing at him out of the corner of her eye. Ethan remained impassive. When the elevator doors opened, Susan followed him into the garage, expecting him to lead her to one of the luxury cars. She'd imagined a Bentley maybe, or even a Maybach. But Ethan stopped abruptly beside a modest white Honda. She blinked, her steps faltering. Is this your car?" she asked, unable to hide her surprise. "Yep." His reply was short, his tone devoid of any defensiveness or explanation. He slid into the driver's seat. Still baffled, Susan climbed in. Her eyes caught on a packet of tissues sitting on the dashboard. The packaging was cheap, emblazoned with the words, "gas station, cheapest and easiest," in bold letters. She frowned slightly, sinking into thought. "Why a Honda?" she asked finally, her voice tinged with curiosity. Ethan started the engine, his hands steady on the wheel. "It's cheap and fuel efficient," he said simply, his focus already on the road ahead. Susan blinked, thrown by the blunt practicality of his response. "Is this what a successful CEO does?" she wondered. "Live frugally while the rest of us struggle to keep up appearances?" The car pulled smoothly onto the street. The ride was uneventful, the silence between them. 10 minutes later, the car slowed to a stop in front of the subway station. Ethan shifted into the park, his eyes briefly meeting hers. "Off you go," he said flatly. Susan blinked, caught off guard by his matter-of-fact tone. She had only mentioned the subway as a courtesy, expecting he'd insist on dropping her closer to her destination. Suppressing the flash of irritation that flared in her heart, she forced a polite smile. "Thanks, hubby," she said, and unbuckled her seatbelt before stepping out. Before she could close the door, the car sped off, leaving her standing on the curb. The faint scent of his cologne lingered in the air as the Honda disappeared into the distance. Susan stared after it for a moment, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. "What an annoying and cruel man," she muttered under her breath, shaking her head as she turned toward the subway entrance. Soon, Susan arrived at Drew Corporation shortly before 10 a.m., her mood already sour. Since returning from her studies abroad, she had worked diligently at the company. But as she stepped into the building, the general manager, John, greeted her with a strange smirk. "You don't need to come in anymore, Susan. This project isn't yours to handle anymore," he said, his tone dripping with sympathy. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. Before John could answer, his gaze shifted past her. "Ah, Miss Sophia, here you are." "Hi, sister," Sophia said as she walked toward Susan, her lips curving into a faint smile. "I didn't expect to see you here so soon." Susan spun around but didn't respond, her breath hitching as she watched Sophia approach.
To listen to the full audio series, install the Pocket FM app now.